Hello. Hello, folks. Hope you're doing well. Let's get started. I will not look at the chat during the presentation. I will answer your questions after, so keep them for the end of the presentation. Let's get started. So, welcome to today's presentation, folks. This is a unique opportunity, and this is a once in a very long time that I'm doing that. I'm going to do the entire presentation about how to craft a portfolio that gets you hired, aka succeeding as a concept artist in today's seemingly saturated market. So, this is the exact presentation that I did at Kind of Art that was organized by Mood Visuals a few weeks ago. I was invited there. It was in Copenhagen. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And yeah. Just a question. Can you hear me? Just can you hear me, folks? Awesome. Sorry, I was just checking that. Okay, 5 on 5. You can see the screen. Everything seems good. Great. All right, let me hide the chat and all of that. So, this is the exact presentation that I did at Kind of Art that was organized by Mood Visuals a few weeks ago. It was a massive banger. We got an amazing reception from that presentation. This is also the exact framework that I use with the mentees. A lot of people there might know that I'm doing a mentorship on how to get a job to get hired. So this is your chance to slide inside our mind and better understand what we are doing. I spent roughly 50 hours preparing that presentation for Kind of Art. I did 5 iterations to pack more and more and more and more and more infos in it as much as possible. So yeah, let's get started. Buckle up your seat, take a lot of notes. Let's get ready. I can guarantee you that by the end of that presentation, you won't be able to see how the industry works the same way as before. And speaking of promise, here is the big promise. At the end of that presentation, you will know the universal and battle-tested methodology to craft a banger portfolio that gets you hired reliably, even when you have little to no experience, that allows you to stand out positively in a seemingly saturated market, that ticks all the boxes that companies require to hire someone. If you are already working, it will allow you to get paid more. And also, it can be replicated at any stage of your career, not just your first job. As I said, this is the framework that normally I use with my mentees, and the replay for that one will be available for only a few days, then it's gone. Overall, today's presentation is teaching you how to reach the top 5% of artists getting the jobs and getting an abundance of them, rather than being stuck in the 95% of artists fighting for the crumbles and underpaid gigs. For those who discovered me recently on LinkedIn, with some random posts, the emails and all of that, and we are not familiar with who I am yet, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Timothée Maton, you can call me Tim. I'm from France, as you can get from the French very baguette accent, mon ami. I'm a senior concept artist and art director in the AAA video game industry. I am an illustrator for tabletop RPGs, and I have been an art mentor and instructor. I've been working in the industry since 2016. I'm not here to give you my full CV, but this is roughly what I worked on. I started at Ubisoft, then Quantic Dream, then Netflix, then a lot of outsourcing studios. Worked on Steep, Rider Republic, a lot of Lord of the Rings games, some Total War Warhammer project, D&D related books, trading card project, a lot of projects buried under NDA forever. I have also been a teacher since 2018. I've been teaching in a lot of schools, including Belcourt in Lyon, and more specifically and more recently, New Edge in Paris. For those who know New Edge, it's the school that are producing a ton of the little prodigies that we see in the concept art industry. And of course, way more. I apologize if there is a noise in the background. The air conditioner just activated. It's going to stop in a few minutes. But also, in 2023, I launched a mentorship. The one I'm going to talk to you about and that I have mentioned the framework of that you're going to learn right now. It's about job acquisition and all of that. And 6 months later, I was not really expecting it to be that overwhelmingly positive on both the mentee side. We're absolutely delighted. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them are in the chat right now and will be able to confirm that, even though I'm not reading the chat. And also from the studios. I was not expecting that many studios were following us. And it's only when I joined Kind of Art that I realized that every fucking one knows what we do, supports us. And I got contacted by so many studios to give them access to the Google Drive where I store the mentees' work so they can contact them. And some of them just got interviews even yesterday. Whew. We went from work like this. Hello, Jess. I saw you in the chat, by the way. To that in a matter of a few months. Or from this to that, again in a few months. Or from this and this to that and that. Or from this to that and that. Or from this to that and that. I know I've been quite quick, but there's a lot of slides. But I think we can agree that this is a pretty impressive set of level ups. And this is exactly the framework you're going to learn on how to level up like that and start producing beautiful, professional artworks. Before we start, I want to quickly get back on how I started my career. Again, it won't be longer, but it's just to give you a bit more context and show you that it's connected to today's situation. Back in 2016, let's rewind the tape. I got kicked out of art school. This is my last art school report. And as you can see, it's not very glorious. It's not glorious at all. You can see a lot of zeros, some oddly specific bad comments. Literally, I gave up. Got kicked out of school. Sorry if the kitty is meowing in the background. He wants to play. But yeah, very bad school report. Got kicked out of art school. It was in June. My parents discover about that. My mom tells me, hey, you're going to have to find a job, otherwise you come back to mom's home by December. So I had 6 months in front of me to find a job. I was an art school dropout. I was feeling like trash. All my classmates were having fun at school. I had zero freaking clue on how to have a job. This is how I felt. Man. Ooh. I was losing sleep over that. It was quite tough. So out of desperation, I'm reaching out to a former teacher of mine. His name is Richard Dumont. Sorry, my kitty is attacking me right now. His name is Richard Dumont. And he was working at Guerrilla Games. Sorry, the kitty is attacking me right now. He was working at Guerrilla Games on Horizon Zero Dawn, then Killzone, and before he was at Eidos Montreal, working on the Deus Ex saga. And he was trusting me. He was one of the only person that I knew in the industry. And I was like, hey man, my situation is desperate. Can you help me? So he was like, well, given your situation and how little time you have to tell exactly what I'm telling you without asking question. You will understand it later. I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. I have nothing to lose. So let's do that. So I followed his instruction. A few months later, in December 17th, I applied to Ubisoft. I sent my best email, my best portfolio that I could have at the time. And a few days after, I was screaming in my mom's house. And she was like, what the fuck is happening? She was always scared and all of that. And I was like, Ubisoft answered to me and they want to have an interview with me. So fast forward, December 23rd of 2016, my family was baking the Christmas cake. I was in the room next door. I was having Ubisoft on the phone. I did the interview. Then a few days after, I got an interview. I got an art test. Sorry, my cat is attacking me right now. So I got an art test on January 4th. It was 4 days worth of art test. I slept for 8 hours, roughly. I delivered the best piece I could do at the time. A few days after, they want me to have a physical interview with them. My mom literally buys me a suit. I'm looking like a penguin in a tuxedo. I'm going there. My entire family is coming with me to cheerlead behind me. They are waiting for me outside of Ubisoft when I'm doing the interview. Then a few days after, call from Ubisoft. I'm hired. Yay! And at the time, I was really, even more than now, crippled by imposter syndrome, just like every artist. And I was like, is it luck? Because it was my first application ever. I had no degree. My CV was an absolute work of art. This is absolutely everything you should not do in a CV. Whew. It was bad. I was looking like an absolute dork. I had zero social skill. I got 2 interviews, 1 art test, 1 month of probationary period, and I still had the job after that. So given how harsh the filtering system was, there's no way it was out of pure luck. So it meant probably 2 things. 1, my portfolio was good enough and carried me hard through the whole application. And 2, I did well during the interviews. And that's why I got lucky. I got lucky because my teacher, Richard, definitely knew his shit. And at the time, I didn't know that he was that competent about getting jobs, but definitely he was because his advice were amazing. And also regarding interviews, I had zero social skill, but my dad at the time was working in a software engineering company, was doing a lot of interviews. And those interviews, he started to train me on the same model. So I just had to transpose it to art And I was kind of ready. And that portfolio part, that's exactly what I'm going to teach you. I know that today in the chat, a lot of people might be like, man, this was in 2016. We are in 2024, soon to be 2025. It's different than now. And I was like, yeah, sure. But it was hard already at the time. It's still hard today. It's a different context. But the situation is the same. There was a lot of people at the time who were trying to apply and still could not get hired either. It's just that right now, the events that happen in the industry act as a catalyst for that and are highlighting that and making it a bit more vocal. And I will not deny that the situation right now is a bit tough, but we have three kind of people right now in the industry. We have those who quit. I'm not going to judge about that, but they are probably not watching that video right now. There are those who are constantly bitching and whining on social media and on LinkedIn about how bad the industry is, how corporate greed and capitalism is destroying everything, writing political manifestos, complaining all the time, spreading outrage, trying to blame anything they can but themselves. And first of all, it's not helping. It's going to make a lot more people feel worse. And also, they don't realize that they are doing probably irreparable damages to their reputation. Because nobody, especially right now in the industry, given how many drama we got and PR shitstorm we got in the industry, nobody in their goddamn right mind wants to hire a depressed shit poster on LinkedIn. They want to hire someone who is professional, positive, and who has not built a history of spreading vitriol and outrage for the last 3 years. Because guess what? If they get hired, they're going to do the same, but with the name of the company in their bio, and it's going to be a PR shitstorm. So they don't want that. And those people are not really helping. And then you have one last kind of people, you actually probably watching that stream, who still want to win anyways. And are asking yourself, what can I do now to still get an edge and win anyways? And today's presentation is for you. It's a direct answer to the situation in the industry that looks like shit. But actually, and again, the mentees or the members of the Discord in the chat right now can confirm that, I guess, there is way more than you can do about jobs than you think. And we're going to see exactly that. So the question is, what do I do now? What are the levers I can activate to win? That's where the painful part is going to start. Be ready, grab your emotional plushie. We need to rip out the Band-Aid. It's going to sting a bit for 10 minutes. Then I'm giving you the solution, I promise. Let's start with a proper diagnosis to give you a proper solution. Most artists today get terrible results when it comes to finding a job, and it's not a surprise. I apologize, it is not disrespectful. I'm here to help. We need to ask ourselves why to understand how to stand out positively. As I told you, I've been running the mentorship for over a year, and since January 2024, it went absolutely exponential. I'm receiving between 20 and 40 applications per week. So I roughly reviewed between 900 and 1,100 portfolios since January. And I can tell you that over 99%, 95% of artists' portfolio do not work at all. Their work is not relevant to what companies really need. Their work is scattered all over the place. Their work lacks intention and pure design work. Instead, their work looks like collections of Gumroad tutorials. And their portfolio, for most of them, they follow every single trends we have already seen a gazillion time online. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can feel called out right now in the chat. Again, I'm here to help you and provide you a solution to change that. The problem is that today, a lot of artists tend to focus exclusively on technical skills, rendering and polished pictures only, mimicking famous styles and artists. And it's not bad, it's just that it's not what companies are looking for. What companies want is not a master at rendering and keyframe and all of that, but someone who is production-oriented. What does that mean? It means someone who is making the life of the next team in the pipeline easier. You need to remember, as a concept artist, but even as a 3D artist or any other artist in a pipeline, people after you are going to grab your work and work upon it. So they need to have all the infos required that you give them to do their job properly. Otherwise, you will make their life a fucking hell. And also, they want you to bring fresh and original idea to the table and not something we have seen a gazillion time online. And the problem is that artists and companies are not looking for the same things naturally. As an artist, we want to see the flashy pictures. We want to improve our skills. We want to train like Naruto. We have the shonen spirit, we want to become the best. Companies, they want you to prove very grounded things. They want first you to prove that you can design and iterate a lot on some fresh and functional ideas. So it gives them options to choose from. Also, they want you to give the 3D team everything they need to model your design without having to guess. So this saves them time, headache, and eventually money. And I know a lot of people like to complain about greedy corporation making millions of dollars and all of that. Let's be clear, folks. You don't like to lose money. I don't like to lose money. Companies do not like to lose money either. It's just that when you lose money, it might be $10 or $100 if you invested in a shitcoin in crypto. When companies lose money, it's 5 to 6 figure minimum per people. And sometimes it's like 7, 8, 900 figures. Look at Concord. Look at all those games that are flopping at the moment. They are losing 9 figures worth of money right now. And nobody wants that. There is a big misconception in the industry. And I love that video from Tyler Edlin called The Truth About ArtStation because he absolutely nailed it. And I know that also Feng Zhu in the video 111 called The Spirit of Entertainment Design absolutely nailed it too. So let me give you a TLDR for those who have not seen it. The problem is that a lot of artists today, especially the aspiring one, think that what you need to get a job is what we see on the tip of the iceberg. This is basically what we see constantly on ArtStation. The flashy picture, the keyframe, the illustration, sometimes the AI shit. And the problem is that this is less than 5% of what we do at work. This is what a lot of artists are doing for fun. This is not production-ready stuff. This is promotional material, or this is a very curated selection of work from a production that has been stamped with a logo like God of War or Horizon or whatever, presented within an art job as marketing. But this is never showing you the cutaways, the breakdown, the iteration, the layout, the turnarounds, the sketches, the failed experiments that are needed in work that nobody wants to show because they are not looking fancy. So we never see them on ArtStation. And also, they are required for the job. This is the core of the job. So this is creating that big misconception. Even production work, again, like an art job from like Ubisoft or God of War or something like that, it's a very highly curated selection of the fancy stuff, not the failed experiment. And you need to fail a lot, and you need to sketch a lot, and doodle a lot, and experiment a lot to eventually come out to the great designs. You need to remember that your currency as a concept artist is not pretty picture and how well you can render. AI can almost do it today. Feng Zhu explained that in the video 110. Go watch it. And don't shoot me, please, I'm just the messenger. But if you are just a fancy picture maker today, you are in danger because AI is coming after you. However, designing and helping the 3D team, first of all, this is what is required to get a job, and also AI is shit at that. 2 birds, 1 stone. And this is reflected in the application pool. So I want you to picture this. I want you right now to take a deep breath. Let's do a quick mental exercise. Take a deep breath. Slowly count down to 5 as you breathe out. And close your eyes. And imagine yourself. You are an art director in a big studio. It could be EA, Ubisoft, Blizzard, Riot, CDPR, Larian, whatever you fancy. You are that art director. It's 2 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. You are tired. It's been a long week. And you're already thinking about the wonderful weekend you're going to have at the lake or the beach or whatever you like with your family. It's going to be so good. And suddenly, you hear a Slack notification. Or if you are very unlucky, a Microsoft Teams notification. It's the HR. She's writing something to you, and she's writing, please find attached all the applications we received this week. Can you please review them before leaving today? Attached, there is an Excel sheet, and oh shit, 157 portfolios to review. Remember, it's 2 p.m. in the afternoon. You're on a Friday, you need to leave at 5, so you roughly have 3 hours. Here is a question for you. In that situation, what would you do to review all these applications while still being able to live at 5? I will let people potentially answer in the chat. I see Edward knows it in the chat. You can probably confirm exactly that, and you can confirm the PTSD. Skip the bad one. Oh, HR scrolls first 5. Only look at the thumbnail. Drop 100 in trash. 5-second portfolio. You're pretty close, guys. I like it. Congrats. The answer is trying to find any excuse to disqualify as many candidates as possible, because you roughly have around 1 minute max per candidate. And trust me, you will have way, way, way less. So let's say you have the CV, there's no clickable link to the portfolio. Next. You open it, it's not a good style. Next. You open it, the technique is not good enough. Next. No need to review something that is not good enough. It's a collection of Gumroad tutorial. Next. It's a fan art. Next. There's no creativity. Next. It's a clusterfuck that takes forever to load. Next. It's unorganized. Next. It's a Wix website. Next. Fuck Wix website. I'm sorry. As artists, we like to overcomplicate things, and it's already horrible. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. This is not a fiction. I'm pretty sure if there are some art directors or people who did recruitment, they can confirm that. This is also what happened to me in 2022. I was in a small company called Polymos. It doesn't exist anymore. And we were nobody. We were a little startup, less than 500 followers on LinkedIn and Twitter, probably combined. But every time we were doing a job offer for an artist, we were receiving between 75 and 80 applications a day. And guess what? Guess who had to review them? That's me. And I hated that shit. And we were nobody. Now imagine that, but on a gigantic company. Like Ubisoft, CDPR, Lion, Blizzard, Riot. You can probably add a 0 to what they receive every day. There is no way they can review all of that properly in like 10 minutes. There's no freaking way. So again, what they are doing is filtering that as much as possible. And you know, sorry, I spoiled it. You want to know the dirty little secret? The thing that most recruiters say out loud or in their head when they are reviewing work, in most of the cases, the most common thing they say is that they roll their eyes and they say, oh shit, another one. Another keyframe wannabe, another Last of Us fan art nerd, another Gumroad nerd tutorial collector, another splash artist that does not understand the codes of splash art, another quote-unquote character designer with only portraits, another environment designer with only spiky mountains and landscapes and the salesman stick walking towards a gigantic shit in the background. This is how it feels on the market. Everyone looks the same. And the problem is that a lot of aspiring artists, they don't realize that by following trends and being like everyone else and following the dogma, their work is becoming a commodity. And due to the law of supply and demand, if what you do is common and easy to replace, I'm sorry to say that, but on the market standpoint, it has no value. And even if you were to get hired, you put yourself in a massive danger, because as your work is easily replaceable, potentially to cheaper artists in a low-income country, you can be replaced by the snap of a finger. So you are at a massive risk. And how can you possibly stand out if what you do has been seen a gazillion times? Instead, that's the reaction you want to have. Like, oh my God, finally someone who gets it. Finally someone who understands production. That's what you want. And this is so rare today. Less than 5% of applicants. And for that, you need to understand the hiring process and the pipeline. And for that, with your portfolio, you need to prove 3 things. 1, you understand what is required in production for the 3D modelers and what the studio needs, so you can help the 3D team model your design. 2, you can design things, solve problems, and iterate, so you can have a conversation with the art director and the rest of the team and pick the best solutions and the best designs. And 3, you can bring fresh and prospective ideas to the table that are relevant to the studio. This way you bring creative value You fit their mold, you understand what they want, and you can expand on that. Notice I have not mentioned technique because technique can be assessed in like 1 or 2 pictures only. And today, technique is so accessible with 3D, Megascans, PhotoBash, and all of that, soon potentially AI, that today technique is a given. It's not even an argument in your favor anymore. You cannot stand out with technique now. It's just you have it or you don't have it. You need to see sending your portfolio and an application exactly like that scene. It's a duel. It's an intellectual duel. And the reviewer reviewing your work is going to machine gun your portfolio with questions. Those 3 questions and way more. Can you do this? Can you do that? Do you have fundamentals? Do you have anatomy? Do you know this? Do you think about that? Blah, 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 blah. Tons of questions. Trying to test your portfolio. It's going to bend your portfolio if at some point your portfolio fails to deliver on one of those questions. It can snap and break and you get nexted, next candidate, reapply later. And that's how 6 months of work ends up in the trash in a few seconds of review. So you need to anticipate those questions and parry or deflect them with your portfolio. This way, if they cannot find a reason to disqualify your work, it means that your portfolio is good enough and they have no way but to abdicate by forwarding you to the next stage of the hiring process. Again, you anticipate objections, you counteract them, and normally your portfolio is good enough. And the problem, again, to get back on that initial problem, is that 95% of applicants don't even pass the first question. Ask yourself with your own work, guys, for those who are not working yet, do you understand what is required in production for the 3D modelers and what they need? Let me reformulate the question. If you were to send your portfolio as it is right now to the 3D team, can they model everything that you have inside your portfolio without having to guess anything? If the answer is yes, do more. If the answer is no, that's probably why you're struggling to even get a single interview. A fancy picture is not enough. You need to also understand that hiring someone is a massive gamble for the company. Because, as I said, nobody wants to lose money. It costs a fuck ton of money, time, effort, and resources to onboard someone. And if you have no previous experience, you have no record of having successfully been working in a company. So, the way you compensate for a lack of experience is by proving you understand what is required and delivering it well already in your portfolio. This is for all the people who say, hey, all the junior jobs require 5 years of experience. How can you get 5 years of experience if you cannot work in the first time? Exactly by that. By proving with your portfolio in advance that despite not having worked in a studio, you understand what is expected from you. This is how you compensate for a lack of experience. My first job at Ubisoft was requiring 3 years of experience. I had 0. I got hired because my portfolio proved it. So now that we ripped out that band-aid, and I apologize for the painful introduction, let's craft a portfolio that proves you understand what is required in a production, proves you understand what the specific studio you are aiming at wants, a portfolio that stands out positively in that era of clones of famous artists, that acts as a breath of fresh air for the reviewer, and hopefully gets you hired. Ready? Let's go. Step 1, you're going to have to find companies that are compatible with you. This is a post I made recently on LinkedIn. The problem is that a lot of aspiring artists, they are like, yeah, I'm in France. I want to work on God of War at Sony Santa Monica right now. Sure, that's amazing. The problem is that they are only hiring seniors and you cannot even get a visa to work in the United States. How can they possibly hire you? They are not going to give you a visa sponsorship because it's going to cost $500,000. So first of all, aim at companies that are compatible with you. First of all, they need to do things that you like. This is a given. Thank you, Captain Obvious. More important than that, they need to be junior friendly. And this is where I see a lot of grieving on LinkedIn. Even this morning, I was like, yeah, it's impossible to find a junior friendly company. They are only hiring like a gazillion years of experience for junior job, blah, 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 blah. You need to understand this is bullshit. 3 years of experience for a junior is bullshit. It's just a filtering system. The reason is that if a company was posting a job with zero experience needed, they will open the floodgate, get all the amateurs and students in the world to apply, get 10,000 of applications. They will waste time reviewing unqualified applicants. For X years of experience record filters out a lot of unqualified people. This way, those who are applying, they already have that experience. In that case, that's good. Or else they are confident enough to apply anyways. There will still be a bit of failed experiment, but it's still way better than 0 year. And you need to understand this is a test of your willpower. And again, you compensate lack of experience by proving you understand what is required. So, how to find junior-friendly companies? So yeah, you compensate lack of experience by showing you understand how production works. I talked about that. Finding companies that are hiring juniors. You're going to search for artists with the same jobs as you want. So on Google, company name or the product name plus concept art plus ArtStation. Example, Mood Visuals, concept art, ArtStation. You're going to find a crap ton of artists. Or else you search directly on ArtStation, but I would prefer Google. You can also check the credits of a game or movie and search the artist names on Moby Games for games or IMDb Pro for movies. That's how you're going to search for the credits. You're going to use the Control F search for the concept artist, and then you're going to search their work on ArtStation. Then for each artist that you have, you find their LinkedIn and you track on their history when they started working at the company you are aiming at. You can also connect with them, by the way. And if at least one of them had 3 years of experience or less when joining that studio, consider the company is accessible with a proper portfolio. Again, you compensate those 3 years of experience by a proper portfolio that proves you understand what is required. If none of them had 3 years of experience or less, consider the company is not accessible to juniors. And all the names of these artists you have found, you separate them in 2 categories, the art directors and the seniors in one side, and then the juniors, or those who got hired as juniors on the other category. Sounds good? This way you do not set yourself up for failure and you can apply to companies that are accessible. Another thing, accessible with your visa. I'm not a visa expert, but make sure that your current citizenship and visa allows you to travel and work there. Let's say you are in Europe, you cannot work in the US. You are in the US, working in Europe is going to be tough. But let's say you are in Europe, working in anywhere in the EU is a piece of cake. If the studio is not accessible, also you can check if they hire freelancers, because freelancers can work from anywhere in the world. If they don't, check again in the credit of the games if they have been working with other outsourcing studios in other countries that are then accessible with your visa. That's how you're going to find eventually, let's say 5 or 6 companies that you like, that are working on somewhat similar projects between each other, that are junior friendly, that are accessible with your current visa. And eventually you can also find 1 or 2 companies out of your league that are still doing similar stuff. You will be learning from them a bit later. Again, if you don't know about that many studios, you can discover more on Game Dev Map. That's a website. Moby Games for the credit of games and IMDb Pro for the credits of movies. All good? Step number 2. Finally, we are diving into artistic stuff. After a long introduction where we were talking about everything but art. You need to understand the art direction and how to close the gap with those studios. And this is the step that everyone misses. And I'm so pissed when I see people like that, when I'm having people in calls that are like, no, that's fine, I know how they do it already. No need to dive deeper about what they do. Guess what? If you knew exactly what they were doing in the studio and how to do the same work as them, why are you not hired? Every time you tell yourself, yeah, I understand how that artist is doing their work, and you are skipping to dive deep about that, you destroy your chances of properly targeting the company. Everyone is mimicking mindlessly the artwork that they see online, but only on a surface level. Look at all the Last of Us fan art. They are just doing post-apocalyptic building covered in shit and plants. But none of them get the art direction behind it, how they compose the scene, how they use vegetation to enhance the level design and all of that. They are just seeing like, oh, post-apocalyptic shit covered in grass, let's do the same. No. That's surface level imitation, and an art director is going to fucking hate that. You want to prove you understand what companies want in depth. So you need to start doing research about how to target companies for your portfolio. This way you can orient your portfolio towards those companies specifically and make sure your work is relevant to them. Let's start with the art direction. This is the visual cooking recipe they use all the time to make their work consistent and emblematic of that studio. Do not focus on technical execution, please. I don't care if they use 3D, photo bashing, Blender, whatever. Let's focus on art direction first at the moment. Step 1, for each of the companies you got, you grab work from their artists. The ones I mentioned that you separated in 2 categories before. Do not pick 50 pictures. Just 10 to 15 pictures per studio is enough. If you have 6 studios, it's going to be roughly 100 pictures. That's already a lot to analyze. You're going to curate the selection of artworks to pick what is representative of the project you are aiming at and artistically relevant. And you're going to make sure you have a nice balance between polished pictures, aka keyframes or illustration, and production work like props, call-out sheets, iterations, all of that. Then you're also going to notice if the artists working at the studios are generalists, chances are the studio probably wants generalists. If they are specialists, the studio probably wants specialists. If you find both generalists and specialists, the studio probably is okay with any of them. That's how you know if you need to specialize or be generalist for a studio. It depends on the studio you are aiming at. Then you're going to review their pictures through these lenses. The composition structure that they use all the time, the color palette they use, the value range, hue, saturation, etc. The lighting and shadow formula they use all the time for every picture. The storytelling element, what they want to tell and how they tell it. How they overlap elements on their characters or scene. What are the recurring elements and shapes they are using in every picture? What is the shape language? What are the camera angles they use? What is the mood that they use in their pictures? What are the types of games they are designing for? It's very important. What are the emotions, the sensations and feelings they want the viewer to have when seeing those artwork? And also the questions that Feng Zhu is talking all the time. Again, video 111 for those who don't know about it. Where, when, who, why, how. Whew, that's a lot. Again, we are talking about why their design choices make sense for the type of project they are working on. This way, your work is relevant. And again, getting back on that warning I issued at the beginning about being superficial, every time you come up with a generic term that you find, ask yourself why or how 6 or 7 times in a row. Similar to a 4-year-old kid always curious about everything. Let's give you an example. At some point you analyze their art direction, you're like, yeah, their work is very moody. What the fuck does that mean, very moody? And then you're going to dive deeper, you're going to realize, oh, it engages the senses, you have the touch, the smell, you can smell the picture, you can hear it. Oh, so it's not about mood, it's about engaging the senses. That's what you mean. That's how you're going to be in depth. Same, let's say you say the lighting is epic. What does that mean? Oh, it's golden light. Okay, why that golden light is epic? Because it's the call to adventure, it's divine. Okay, now we are not talking about lighting, we are talking about storytelling. That's because it's the beginning of a story. We are talking about the birth of a hero. That's an example. I'm rambling a lot, but I don't have 40 hours to explain all of that. Next, volume. You have 100 picture, roughly. You're going to process through a lot of picture until you start seeing recurring element across all those pictures in all these different studios. When you are going to analyze those first pictures, it's going to be very long at the beginning. And eventually, you're going to notice it's always the same thing, even across the different studios if they are doing similar stuff. So at the beginning, you might take 10 minutes per picture. Eventually, just in 30 seconds, you see everything. You know you have done that exercise well when you see always the same thing. And as soon as you see a picture in 30 seconds, you understand all the codes you have analyzed. You're going to do the same for juniors and you're going to realize that their codes are exactly the same. It's just the technical execution that is not as good as seniors. And it's going to be a benchmark to realize that accessing junior technique is doable. You're going to summarize those research to establish an average art direction document / Bible for these studios. This is based on the recurring elements you have found. Now, we're going to do exactly the same for their mindset and technique. By mindset, I do not think like a law of attraction and positivity guru bullshit on YouTube. I mean what they are thinking about when making those pictures. So first of all, for the same artworks that you've analyzed the art direction of, now you're going to ask yourself those 2 questions in parallel. What are every single step of their process to make a picture from start to finish? From the very first brainstorming session and research gathering, to the sketches, to the potential 3D mockup, to the potential photo batch, to the rendering, to the compositing and delivering it to the client. What are also the tools and softwares they are using? And you want to retro-engineer how they make this picture by yourself, not by following a tutorial mindlessly. Again, if you follow a tutorial, this is something called Bloom's taxonomy. You can have a look, Bloom's taxonomy. Can someone write it in the chat, please? Bloom taxonomy. Those are the different stages of learning. If you follow a tutorial stupidly, you're going to be in the lower stage of education, which is not allowing you to become autonomous on that. If you retro-engineer by yourself, you're going to struggle a bit more. But if you do it properly, you're going to understand way more than just following along a tutorial. Then you're going to analyze finally the technical stuff, the rendering, what people are craving. You're going to analyze every aspect of their rendering process, the line work if they have any, how they color stuff, how they do the lighting, how they do the texturing, how they do the painting, how they render the materials, how they render the volume, how they pose their character, everything that they do in 3D modeling, shaders, lighting, and really try to establish the step-by-step tutorial by yourself on any of those points. Then you're going to do exactly the same analysis, the art direction, the technical process, and the rendering that you have done for the pros. You're going to do it for your work, your most accurate and recent portfolio. Try to be as honest as possible. And normally, if you have done the work on the professional properly, you're going to be like, damn, why am I not doing that already in my work? The differences are going to be obvious to you. And you want to highlight the main differences between how you do it versus how they do it for every single point of the art direction, technical process, and rendering. This is the average of how you are doing it versus the average of how pros are doing it. You're going to highlight the most drastic changes that you need to implement in your work to close the gap. And if you have done your analysis thoroughly, it should be absolutely obvious about the process to close the gap. So congrats. Now you know what you need to change. You cannot unsee them anymore, and you know exactly how to fix them. It looks tedious, it takes a bit of time, but this is way more efficient and way cheaper than any tutorial in the world to learn something. And I'm pretty sure the mentees in the chat are going to confirm that again right now. Again, I'm not seeing the chat. And again, do not freak out. I know it sounds like a lot, but you do not need to apply 100% of what seniors are doing. Implementing just 30% of seniors' ability in your work for each aspect of your process is enough to catapult your level above junior level. Do not worry about that. When to use tutorials? To learn a tool or software you have never used before, or if the tutorial is laser focused on one specific part of the process you want to understand. But again, retro-engineer it by yourself, it's way more efficient. Use that as a last resort. I advise to spend 2 or 3 weeks doing all the research mentioned previously and planning your portfolio properly. We're going to see how to plan your portfolio properly just after. It's going to save you months of work. It's like driving to a faraway distance without a GPS. You might eventually get there, but you will get lost on the way. If you know exactly where to go and you have the GPS, you're going to optimize your path. Doing those 3 weeks is going to save you potentially months, if not years, because let's say you do a portfolio without doing that. You don't know where you are going. You don't know to target company. You're going to spend 6 to 9 months on a portfolio. Guess what? It's not good enough. Congrats, you've wasted 6 to 9 months for the sake of saving those 2 weeks. That sounds like a lot. And I don't know why on that slide, but there should be that little frog I was showing at the beginning. Like, man, that's a lot, man. Don't worry. Next, you need to plan your portfolio. Very important. We are not writers. We are designers. I know everyone has their personal IPs, me included. We are not writers. We are designers. They don't give a shit about your personal IP. That's not your job. Your job is just to use your portfolio as an excuse to prove 3 things. 1, you can understand what the production team requires and what the company needs. 2, you can design cool and compelling content based on the brief with a lot of drastically different iterations. And 3, your technique is good enough. So please, for the love of your application and the love of your time, pick a subject that is easy to understand. I love that meme because on the left side, we have like the Tolkien of portfolio, like super personal project, 150 pages of lore, branching backstories. You make your own language, you have crazy world building with rules, genealogical tree for every families. Nobody understands that, you won't get hired. On the other side, and you can look at the work of the mentees that I shared, you can pick a famous story, bring one big twist, and you design cool shit, and you are more likely to be hired. Pick a subject that is easy to understand. So pick an existing story, culture, myth, or trope, preferably that has not been adapted a gazillion times in games or movies recently. Keep it grounded, and add a twist to it that changes the rules of its world. An example is like the Treasure Island, but in Art Nouveau style. That's what Disney did. They picked the Treasure Island, they make it in space, that's the treasure planet. That's literally the same story and the same characters. Let's pick the Three Musketeers, but they are in 1920 New York Art Deco styles, and instead of being musketeers, they are spies. That's amazing. Let's pick elves, but instead of being the vegetarian hippies that we know from Tolkien, they live in a volcano with lava instead of a forest. They're like the death metal elves, you know. They are worshipping a phoenix or a red dragon. You cannot have wood. You're going to change the rules. This is why you need to add a twist that drastically changes the rules, because it's going to create problems that you can solve visually. And that's your job. You are there to be a designer. You need to have a design-heavy subject that has problems that you need to solve visually. And please do not solve it like, oh, shut the fuck up, it's magic. No, solve it with mechanics, with tangible stuff, not just random magic. An example. French Revolution, but magic replaces gunpowder and firearms. Again, this is a bad example. I just said do not solve problems with magic. Let me explain on that one. The clergy and the nobility were holding the peasants and the commoner kind of hostage because they were having the monopoly on gunpowder. Similar with magic. And when the French peasant took the Bastille and got gunpowder and firearms, they could finally fight against the clergy and the royalty. Now let's imagine with magic. Royalty and clergy has a monopoly on magic. It's forbidden to be used by the commoners. And now the commoner take the magic Bastille and it unleashes magic everywhere and it spreads chaos everywhere. Pretty cool. French Inquisition, but the folkloric bestiary is real. How do you reconcile the Inquisition that is banishing everything esoteric with folkloric bestiary? Italian Renaissance, but Leonardo da Vinci is turning his students into superheroes with his inventions. Pretty cool. That's literally Italian Renaissance Batman. Of course, make sure your subject is compatible with the companies you picked. Sincerely, ask yourself if the studio you are aiming at will make such a project. And if you are aiming at companies doing FPS, think about your project like an FPS project. Same with RPGs. You are at Larian Studio, make it as if it was for an RPG. And please, for the love of your portfolio, again, avoid the trendy subject we have seen a gazillion times. Japan, samurai, and ancient Asia overall. We got Ghost of Tsushima, Sekiro, Nioh 1 and 2, Ghost of Yotai has been announced, Wukong, Assassin's Creed Shadow, even though it's going to probably flop. Avoid the cyberpunk thing. We got too many of them. With Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, Cyberpunk 2077, Edge Runner, a lot of indie games. Avoid Vikings with God of War, the Viking series, Game of Thrones, probably way more than I'm forgetting about. Modern military shooter and civil war settings. We are getting them every single year for Christmas with the Call of Duty and all of that. And post-apocalyptic, because again, we are seeing that so much, and The Last of Us destroyed the post-apocalyptic genre for portfolio for ages. Or else, if you are really stubborn, again, you do you, bring a super mega duper giga twist to that. And bring the subject towards something fresh. You want to do post-apocalyptic? Add esoteric stuff. That's Hunt Showdown, for example. Looking at you, Edouard. Hope you're doing well, buddy. And finally, please pick a subject that you really like, not a subject for the sake of following trends, something that you really want to nerd about. Now, in your portfolio, please Avoid the one-trick pony types of portfolio doing only one thing, like only female character with this type of anatomy. Avoid the jack of all trades being master of none, like student work with 15 different projects in 15 different styles, because only a fraction of your portfolio is going to be relevant to what they do. Play to your strength. Your portfolio is your only chance to get hired, and it is only as good as your worst pieces. Your worst pieces, this is what studio are going to review and think that you're going to produce on your bad days. You're tired, you're not inspired, you are sick, you got the bad news, you are 1 week away from vacation. It happens. The artistic process is not constant. And even in those bad days, you still need to be able to be delivering above their standards. So you are only as good as your worst pieces. Today, artists are rarely equally as good as characters and environments, so play to your strength. Again, do not be a one-trick pony, so not 100% of environment if you like it. I would say 70% of your specialty and 30% of a complementary discipline. Let's say you're doing environment, 70% environments, 30% props, same for characters. If you are honestly equally as good for characters and environment, you can do 50% one thing, 30% the other thing, 20% props. In any case, always have props, please. Props are the bread and butter of concept art. For environment design, what to put in your portfolio? That's what I do with the mentees. You can put one shop/function building, the interior and exterior design, like a blacksmith, a tavern, an alchemist. Something like this, a temple, pretty good. Or like this, blacksmith. Have a house/interior design where you show the story of the characters living in it. Something like that. Have one big architectural landmark, like a castle, temple, a big boat, something like that. Something like this. And one wildcard. By wildcard, I mean something unexpected and gameplay and mechanic heavy. Think like a boss arena, a big machine, a puzzle, something like that. Something like this. Or like that. And of course, have some props, please. Very important. Something like this. Or that. Now for characters. I will advise you to have like one protagonist plus a sidekick, like a pet, a mount, a robot, a drone, something like that. Something like that. Or something like this. You have the main character. And the very little sidekick, you know. Have 2 or 3 notable characters, like sidekicks orbiting around the protagonist. Still important characters. You can think, like, let's say there is Harry Potter. You can think about Hermione, Ron, Neville, Ginny, Draco Malfoy, things like that, or the teachers, for example. Things like that. Or like that. Then NPCs. NPCs are the bread and butter of character design. That's what you're going to design the most. And I like having one creature, like merchant, commoners, guards, things like that. Something like this. Or like that. That's totally fine. And again, for character design, a wildcard like a big monster, a boss duo, think Ornstein and Smaug in Dark Souls. Something that is gameplay heavy. Something like that, for example. And of course, some props and gear. And more. And more. And more. And more. I love those. If you are generalist leaning towards environment, you can have a shop/function building and the NPCs owning it, a house and the notable characters living in it, a big architectural landmark and a wildcard. I showed the examples. For generalist portfolio leaning towards character, have one protagonist and their sidekick, plus their house/habitation, 2 or 3 notable characters, and some NPCs in a shop/function building that they own, and a wildcard. Generally, that's quite balanced. Again, none of that is set in stone, but this is the framework we use with the mentees. For each chapter, have 1 or 2 polished pictures, at least 1 or 2 call-out sheets, some props, and everything the 3D team needs, like 2D VFX, material, dynamic poses, costume design, skin, furnitures. At least 1 page explaining how things work, like mechanism, breakdowns, and such. And a curated selection of sketches showing drastically different iterations. So this is an example for the polished picture. This is the example of the call-out sheets. Another example of call-out sheet for the 3D team with the materials right there. So everything the 3D team needs. Again, some iteration and everything the 3D team needs, like some costume design and such. Iterations. More sketches, this time for the animation and dynamic posing. Props, sidekick, all of that. Props, same for environment. Callout sheet / polish render. Callout sheet / polish render. Sketches, iterations, props, more props and mechanism. Iterations, props, polish render if you want. That's a keyframe right there. And please, one big mistake that a lot of juniors are doing is stepping on seniors' territory. There's, again, all those flashy pictures. There's so much money involved that is going to be given to the seniors. Do junior content instead. For characters, it's going to be never the main character design. Let's say you are let's say you're working on Iron Man. There is no way as a junior they give you Tony Stark and Iron Man to design, because it's going to literally make or break the movie. It's going to be toys. It's going to be hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of stakes. So that's a huge responsibility. They are not giving that to a junior. Instead, what you are going to do as a junior for character design is costume and skins. When is the last time you saw that in a portfolio? Everyone wants to do Overwatch characters. Design costumes and skins. Weapons and gear. I think, Edward, if you're still in the chat, you can confirm. I think it's Annika Mercier, who was on Assassin's Creed Mirage, who was doing some costume and skin design as a junior. It was shown in the art job that you did for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Weapon and gear, NPCs, secondary and tertiary characters in the background, beast and trinkets. All the not so important stuff that still needs to be done anyway to populate the scene. For environment design, do shops, secondary and tertiary buildings, props and furniture, small mechanism, set dressings, human scale element, not the gigantic 200-meter towers that are so gigantic they are kind of abstract. Ooh. You'll be like, man, that's a lot of infos. That's why the replay is available for a few days, by the way. You're going to be able to digest that. So let's assume you have done your portfolio, you have done everything. What to do now? Please do not squander your portfolio with poor application practices. This is super important. And again, I see so many posts on LinkedIn that are like, well, my work should be enough to get me hired. No. You need to respect the rules of application. You need to respect the reviewer. Art is only one of the part of the job. It's like a triforce. You have art skills, understanding business and good business practices, and social skills. And respecting the application process and having good application practices is part of the business and social skills. And so many artists with great work squander their application because they are shit at applying. Applying as rules, you need to respect them. And if you overlook application rule, you're going to end up just like Boromir right there. Every step of the hiring process is designed to filter candidates out. The documents you send, like the CV, the cover letter, it's just to prove you can respect the rule and answer the job offer. Your portfolio is to gauge your artistic abilities, your interview for your social skills, the art test, the potential one that you have to verify your skills again. Second interview for your team play abilities and the logistic, etc. They want to verify stuff to be 100% sure you could do the job. So let's talk about CV and letters for a split second. Make sure they are ATS compatible. It will take 4 hours to explain what an ATS is, but check information about ATS on Google. How to make ATS compatible document. There are plenty of articles. It's going to explain to you what an ATS. The TLDR is that an ATS is a bot that is going to read your documents, extract the keywords, and compare that to the job description. If it's roughly matching, they're going to forward you to the next stage of the hiring process. If it's not good enough, you're going to get an immediate rejection email. Put a 1 in the chat right now. I'm going to check the chat very fast. Put a 1 in the chat right now if you ever sent an application and in less than an hour you got a rejection email. I'm going to wait for a few seconds. In the meantime, I'm just going to read the next thing. To make it ATS compatible, make sure your CV and letters are text documents with selectable text. Avoid context the ATS cannot read, like pictures, logos, and all of that. Use plain text formatting like bold, italics, bullet point, etc. curate the keywords and content to fit the job description requirements. You can use synonyms and make clickable and obvious links to your portfolio on your CV. Yeah, I agree with you, Edouard, even further than technique, because it's more important than technique, because if you are bad at communication, you work nothing in a production settings. This is team play. What is the best place to make it? Microsoft Word, Google Doc. Check out, there's plenty of ATS compatible template on Google. It's going to be ugly, but your work is not to make a work of art for your CV. It's a transactional document that gives information. All right, removing the chat, focusing on the presentation again. Please, I made some posts about that. Have a smooth user experience when consuming your portfolio. I will give you the time to read that meme. That's why I fucking hate Wix website. It's because as artists, we like to overly complicate things. It's making the user experience an absolute nightmare to consume your work. When you most of Wix web, every time I see a Wix website as an applicant now for the mentorship, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to want to slap the person. And in most cases, it's the case because it takes forever to load. You have tons of effects. It's wasting time. It's counterintuitive. I just want to review your work, man. I'm not here to solve a puzzle to access one picture. It's the same reviewer. It's all about respecting the reviewer's time. Keep it straight to the point. Ideally, you just have to click on the link of your portfolio and scroll to consume the work. No extra click, no click to enlarge, no button, no choice. You click on the link, it loads fast, you scroll to consume the work. As little clicks or extra steps as possible. ArtStation is good, but please keep the default UI because people are used to it. And keep the default UI because any custom one, we are not accustomed to it. And also the escape key does not work. And you have to find a little cross at the top left or right. And it's making lose time overall. So keep the default UI. Send the link towards a portfolio album rather than your ArtStation profile. You curate the work in that album, ideally 3 to 6 projects in it. The rest goes in an album called All Work. This way there's no misconception. You are not taking the risk that they stumble upon a work that is 10 years old and think it's what you have in your portfolio. Because it's called All Work, it's not relevant. You give the context. Or else you create just one post with your full portfolio in it and you send it. All the reviewer has to do is open the link and scroll. You need to control what the reviewers see and in which order they see it. Otherwise, if you give them the choice, they might skip important stuff and not see everything, create confusion, and you are just losing control over your chances of getting hired. If you need a website, put your portfolio on one page. You have a header with your name, a professional photo if you want, your job title, your location, and a 2-line summary of your expertise. You have a contact info with a clickable email address and a button to contact you. You show your work. All you have to do is scroll. You don't want to have to click to enlarge your pictures. A contact button again, and potentially at the end, your social link and your CV if you want. That's how you put a one-page portfolio. Next, let's say you get the attention of studio and you need to have interviews. As we were saying, and as Edouard just said, social skills and emotional control are required to succeed at interviews. I know that artists tend to be like that Pikachu right now. No, I need to talk to a human. I know. We are all introverted. We are like the ENTG, ENFP, EN something, the social freaks who got bullied in school. We are the introverted. We want to be left alone. The job is a social job. We need to work with a team. We need to have communication work. And even for the introverted monster that we are, it's doable. I'm one of the biggest introverts you can ever meet. I could not see a human being for 3 months and be fine. I still managed to deal properly with interview. It is doable, folks. But you need to prepare your interview. Just be yourself, bro, is bullshit. You need to prepare an interview. This is important. And preparing your interview proves that you care, that you give a shit about them. It's a mark of respect and it increases your chances of getting hired. You need to do your research about the company, their values, their work, the artists working there, and their project. And guess what? With the step 1, 2, and 3, that's exactly what we have done. You need to research the process and what they expect from the artist. You also have done that. You need to figure out how much money you may ask. For that, you go on Glassdoor, you search for an average, but just because you found an average does not entitle you to that. It means that there is more there is less. You need to establish a bracket. You need to prepare an elevator speech to introduce yourself in less than 30 seconds. Because always the first thing they're going to ask yourself in an interview is, please introduce yourself. Can you tell us more about yourself? You need to be able to explain your process and what you are thinking about during every step of the design process. Super important. Do not over-explain like, hey, I use 3D Code. 3D Code is a software that does that. No, they know. Explain what you are thinking about, what problem you are trying to solve, not how you make it. Try to prepare something unique in your way of designing and solving problems. Again, saying I'm using 3D Code is not making you stand out. They don't give a shit. Try to bring something unique in your way of solving problems. Mine, for example, and the one that I'm teaching to the mentees is storytelling-based design. And please prepare arguments to negotiate prices in your favor. Not just, that's the average I found on Glassdoor. Like real arguments. And also prepare answers to the most common behavioral interview questions. Those are like the loaded questions. Like if you were an animal, what would it be? Again, I could spend 4 hours explaining that. You can Google them. Generally, for artists, those questions are rare. But the bigger the studio, the more corporate it becomes. And the more corporate it becomes, the more likely you are to face a tremendous amount of HRs. And HRs are the ones susceptible to ask you that. Artists are directors. They tend to not like corporate things. They are less likely to ask you those questions. But a typical question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Prepare that question. The behavioral interview question, you can prepare that, folks. Oh, so again, I would like, I don't know, I probably mismanaged my PDF and there should be the frog right now. Like, man, that's a lot. So to summarize, we saw how to figure out which companies you can apply to. We saw how to understand what they want in terms of art direction and technique. We saw how to craft a portfolio that ticks their boxes and gets you to stand out positively. We saw how to make sure you do not squander your chances of getting reviewed. And we saw how to prepare for interviews. Stacked together at equal technique, it gives you a massive advantage over your concurrents. And I think we can all agree that all of that, the 99% of artists who are not getting hired, they are doing none of that. Can we agree on that? Can you put a 1 in the chat if it's obvious to you now that most people applying to jobs are not doing even a fraction of that? Can we all agree on that? Here we go. This is how you stand out positively in today's saturated market. Sounds like a lot of work, but that's the price to pay for such a competitive industry. And it is doable to get a job. But you need to do the right things. And those things are putting you way closer and giving you that massive advantage you need. Man, what do I do now? You need to apply with a lot of volume. This is very important because a lot of time, even in the mentorship, sometimes I see some people being like, you don't understand, I have applied 3 times this month. You need to apply 30 times a week. That's how you're going to create a volume of application and proc luck. You cannot rely on luck. You need to force luck. Once you have done everything right in your portfolio, everything we have said, it's not a matter of if you are going to get hired, but when. And for that, you need to force luck. And for that, volume negates luck, or rather lack of luck. You might wonder, how is it possible to apply to 30 different studios per week? There's not that many offers on the job market. Yes, that's because you only see job offers as a way to apply. Of course, you can answer job offers on LinkedIn, ArtStation company website. But these are very saturated. Every time there is a job offer on LinkedIn, there is hundreds of applications now. So while it's doable and you can give it a shot, it costs nothing, you're going to be diluted in a massive pool of candidates. Something else you can do is cold emailing / spontaneous applications. For that to succeed, you need to be patient and super relevant with your portfolio. For those who don't know, cold emailing spontaneous application is you find their contact email, they don't have a job offer, you apply anyways. You need to be patient because obviously they don't have a job offer for you, and you need a super relevant portfolio so that is arguably compatible with what they do, so they notice you, and they would be like, when we need someone, rather than having to go through the ordeal of dealing with 600 shitty-ass applications from LinkedIn, 99% of them would be unqualified and wasting your time. Let's recontact that person with a tremendously relevant portfolio. Let's give them a bit of feedback and see if we can hire them. It's still going to be faster and easier. Make sense? You're planting seed for later. You're establishing relationship with them. And you need to follow up with your email. You need to follow up again in a respectful way. In a week, then again in a week, then maybe 3 weeks, then a month, then 3 months. After 6 or 7 emails that are respectful and well done, they're probably going to at least give you a bit of attention. And also another way is industry events. This is the best way to get jobs because you are bypassing the email filtering. And a lot of people's work will not be appropriate there. Again, it will be the 99% of people who do not get it about how to make a proper portfolio. When I reviewed portfolios at Kind of Art, I reviewed like 60-ish portfolios. There were like 5 or 6 of them, maybe at best, that were decently having a chance. All the rest, it was either not good enough technique. That's fine. They are beginners. They are the best place to learn at industry event. It's great that they are there collecting feedback already. But some people were like, hey, I want to get a job. And their work was like, hey, unfortunately, unfortunately, it's going to be a bit complex for you because you do not even answer the 3 questions I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So because a lot of people will not be appropriate, they will help you stand out. Just one thing, do not go to event for the sole purpose of getting a job. Go there to enjoy the moment, to learn a lot, to get feedback, and potentially to make connections. And do not expect people to hire you on the spot. You're building contact, and they will contact you a bit later. You need to make the habit of sending applications as frictionless as possible, because again, it's tedious and all of that. For that, you need to save time when searching for job offer. So my tip that I give to every student is have a dedicated browser. Let's say you are using Chrome, install Firefox. I don't care if you prefer one or the other, it's beside the point. Open all the tabs for LinkedIn, ArtStation jobs, and the company's career page with the proper filter activated, and set up the browser to open all those tabs when you launch it. And then you set up that browser to launch when you switch your computer on. This way, every morning when you take your coffee or your tea in front of your computer, it opens up, and in 5 minutes of review, you can check the entirety of what is happening on the job market today in just 5 minutes rather than an hour. If you were to do that manually, it would take you an hour a day, and after a few days, you would not do it because it's super fucking tedious. Make that habit easy. Also, make a spreadsheet to track all your applications. When you send the thing, if you followed up, if there was an answer, how is it going? This way you're going to track if you need to follow up with people, resend an email, something like that. This is your personal database, and when you will have to potentially reapply later, you will have all those contacts already. Also, applications, you need to treat them as fire and forget. Do not set impossible expectations every time you apply. Do not think that every time you apply, you are gambling your life. This is a scratcher ticket that costs nothing, 0 expectation, even if it's your dream company. You need to get desensitized to rejection. Use one in terms of style, subject, potentially specialty. This way, 2 cases scenario. Either you find a job, in that case, you have plenty of new work to share on ArtStation, collect likes, cool. Or else, you did not get a job, but you have a new portfolio, so you can reapply immediately with better work. It's just a game of persistence when you do everything right. As a conclusion, there's a lot of information, and that's why the video is available as a replay for the weekend. You adapt to the industry and you give it what it wants. The industry doesn't adapt to you. Stop trying to break the rules and complain about the rules if you do not conform to them. Blaming the system, blaming the industry, blaming corporate greed, blaming whatever scapegoat you want to use as a scapegoat to avoid looking at yourself in the mirror, it's an excuse used by those who do not want to look at their own shortcomings and who do not understand how the system works. Hopefully, that presentation and all the posts I give constantly on LinkedIn, I'm taking a lot of shit for that, are supposed to educate you about that. Don't try to break the rule just because you refuse to conform to them. 2, if you skip the fundamentals, you won't get hired. So stop utilizing and worshipping 3D only. Get back to fucking drawing. It's as simple as that. And also, when everyone on our station does something, do the opposite, please. You cannot stand out if you look like the work everyone else is doing. There's no way. Before we finish that presentation, I would like to share a few more tips to add value to your work and again, increase your chances of getting hired. This is a bit my little secret sauce, and those are the mantras that we are constantly having in the mentorship. The first one is storytelling. So many people overlook that. You need to remember, and Feng Zhu talked about that in the video 111, the spirit of entertainment design. We are entertainers. Each and every single of your design decisions should be driven by storytelling, gameplay, and entertainment. You want to spark an immediate reaction when seeing your work. Here are some examples. You see those sketches? You smile, you feel something, you understand this guy is happy and he is interacting with those little birds. I love that kiddie bench. It won an award last week in the Artnest Academy Award. It's from Alex. It tells so much story. Instead of designing just a random ass bench, you tell the story, you populate the scene. It tells about the fact that people acknowledge that this cat is living there. This is the kiddie bench. Someone brought a food plate. People are feeding those cats and love them. You can touch you can imagine touching the cat. You can imagine the kitty sparring. You can imagine with that scroll that you have to snatch it, but the cat mommy is going to destroy your hand. So maybe you have to grab a fish somewhere to lure a kitty. The cat mommy is going to freak out and grab the kitty. You can snatch your hand to grab the scroll. Things like that. Same with that piece. There's so much story. You see dragons everywhere, so it's draconic themed. You have those draconic bats that are pests. One of them got smashed by a lantern. Another one got smashed by the axe. The axe chopped a bit of the table. Then the light of the lantern is spreading light on that document that is looking like a threatening letter, and you see a doll. You see a family portrait right there. So probably that blacksmith has to craft those draconic weapons for a tyrant who captured these kids. That's how you tell a story with a simple object as a table, you know? And that's so fucking good. That's how you create the storytelling of Elden Ring or Skyrim or Baldur's Gate or The Witcher or something like that. That's great storytelling through object. And people are like, oh, the technique, the rendering. No, this is far more valuable than any shitty-ass keyframe people can produce. Same right there. This is for the Knights of the Round Table. This is a chandelier over the table, and those broken swords. It feels like the Round Table hold in Elden Ring, as if the former Knights of the Round Table, with their swords, are watching over the next generation. This is so good. I'm showing that one because the rendering is not the priority, but the storytelling and the design is so clever, while that object is somewhat simple. It's just a chandelier. But you can implement story in something interesting. Next, paging and presentation. This is the easiest way to elevate the perceived value of your work and the user experience. It's not going to save your work, but bad presentation can absolutely tank your work. Good work with bad presentation equals bad experience. Try to grab that thing or those ones, put that on a 50% gray background. It's not going to look nice. I can guarantee that. Try it, do a screen grab, try it. It's not going to look as nice as right there. It's not going to feel premium. So good work and bad presentation equals bad experience. It feels cheap. It feels like you are not respecting your work when you are showing something on like a gray background, something like that. And if you are not respecting your work, it sends the message that you are not going to respect the work in the studio either. Then good work plus okay presentation, it's a good experience. And good work and good presentation equals, oh my God, I love it. This is for a portfolio. In production, it's not going to look like that. But for a portfolio, you want to take the time and effort to give something as if it could be printed in an art book. And guess what? We are going to release an art book for the Art Nest eventually. It's going to look absolutely lit because the students are so freaking good at presentation. Look at that. It feels like a brochure. There is a composition. You start there, you read with these arrows, and you go down and you see the mechanism. It's meant to be read. It's a composition just like in comics. You see, you start right there, you arrive at the barrel and all of that. You see everything. Careful about text. Text is for your intention, and nobody is going. Do not expect anyone to read the text. But text is a good composition tool to split something. And even for something realistic, you see, this is great presentation and paging right there. This is enough. And the final tip that's going to sound so obvious, people are going to roll their eyes, but this is so important. And again, Feng Zhu is talking about that. Having fun and authenticity. Most of the problem with work that we see today on our station with clones of clones of clones of clones of clones is lack of authenticity, because you are just copying something that does not belong to you and does not speak to you. And we can feel that what people like in those artwork is not the artwork itself. It's the prestige associated with the project who initiated those artworks. It's like, let's say you see two artworks in similar style. One of them is having a Blizzard logo, the other is having no logo. I can guarantee you that the one with the Blizzard logo is going to get more likes even if it's less good. That's because those people associate that with the prestige. And you should chase great artwork and professional work rather than fucking prestige and likes on ArtStation. And ticking all the boxes of companies is not incompatible with picking a subject that you are a mega nerd about. And please add some silly stuff. The doodles in the corner are generally what is going to get you hired, because it shows you are having fun. Whatever emotion you put in your work, people will feel the same when consuming it. If you are having fun doing your work, people will have fun watching at it. I talked about that in the Art Nest Academy Award. The video is available on YouTube. If it feels like a chore, it's going to be a chore and a fucking pain in the ass to review your work too. And guess what? You won't be hired. Also, it talks a lot about how you feel when doing art. And again, nobody wants to hire a depressed shit poster, because your bad feelings are going to affect the rest of the team, and you are more prone to burn out in the studio and to getting everyone depressed around you. What if you are happy? It's going to be good for the morale of everyone. It's going to be good for the mood of the team. You're going to get other people enthusiastic. You are more likely to over-deliver, and you are less prone to burn out. This is why it's important to have fun. Even something like a sketch like that, with just a bad boy, good boy, you can see that Maria is having fun right there. She likes dogos. That's fine. The design are super sick, even at that stage of just a sketch. Same right there with Marnix doing those daily sketches. He's working on Stellaris. He got partially hired thanks to those daily sketches because he's a massive big nerd about spaceships. Same right there with those silly things. This picture won an award last week, not because of the rendering, but because of the emotions and the fun that we can feel that Sarah is having when doing that work. Same with that one, with that kitty cat stealing a fish in every picture that Alex has been producing. There's always a kitty doing something silly. This is having fun. Why so serious? Let's design stuff that are cool. I know that the world is dark right now and a lot of projects are super nihilistic, like in a world to seek revenge because everything is fucked. No. Let's do some silly stuff. You know, we are entertainers. We are there to bring escapism, not to get people to feel even more depressed. Even right there for that food. Look at that. This is a cat bread. This is like skewers from Beast. This is like a beholder punch. Like instead of T-punch, is B-punch in the helmet of a soldier. This is like the fish who ate a cockatrix. This is so funny. Have fun. That's it. Whoo. That's it, folks. I need a fucking cigarette. I'm not smoking, but I will need a cigarette. Whoo. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Hope it was useful to you. Thank you for... Oh my God, 124 spectators? Holy shit. If you are having some questions, tag me in the chat and ask your question right now. Just a quick thing. Let me reactivate the camera. Just a quick thing. If you... normally you have everything you need to craft a banger portfolio. Of course, there's a gazillion different factors that could be badly interpreted or difficult to handle, and so many nuances that it's potentially hard to build a portfolio. So quick shout out. As you know, I have a mentorship to do exactly that. So if instead of doing it alone and potentially fucking up some stuff, you want to do it together, there is a link down below in the description. You can scan that QR code, or you can go to my Calendly right there to book a call. Please make sure you are close to or above junior level and apply to the mentorship for early if you want to join. Again, I don't really care about advertising. As I say, 20 to 40 demons a week, so I'm full anyways. It's going to be filled up for December. We have like only a handful of spots available left for December and same for January. In case you are interested, it's there. But I'm not doing the presentation to sell you anything. You have the framework. That's it. Let's have a look at the questions. Let me move this. We just check with OBS. There we go. Let me move my face right here, and let's have a look at the chat. Here we go. Feel free to ask questions. I will pick the ones that are relevant, of course. I'm good in character design, but companies' requirement is character and creature design focused on realistic superhero. How many album pieces should add in a portfolio? As I'm saying, like 4 or 5 albums is great. We got some students with like just 2 or 3 albums. We got some opportunities already. So as long as your work is good and you tick the boxes as fast as possible, it's good. But yeah, for character design, I will always advise to have a bit of creatures, even if it's just a pet, a mount, a little sidekick, because full-time creature designers are extremely rare. And it might be what you have to do as a character designer too. How many positions do you have left for the next Menti cohort, please? For December, I have 4 left. In the mentorship, will you share some good tutorial and refined line art for those awesome presentation? Not only can I share that, but also I will teach you how to find them by yourself. I'm teaching you how to fish. I'm not fishing for you in the mentorship. Of course, I would like the level to be good enough. So if it's not good enough, people who apply to the mentorship and who are not good enough yet in terms of technique, I'm sending you the resources to self-assess what is missing in your work, and I'm giving you the opportunity to have the first preparatory chapter of the mentorship in advance. It's going to cost something, but if at some point you apply that to your work, you reapply in a few months with better work, I'm going to remove that price from what you pay for the mentorship. So yeah, I can give you the resources, don't worry about that. Do you think steampunk style like Arkane is the current art station trend? Avoid steampunk. To me, steampunk is not a concept art genre. It's a cosplay thing. Steampunk, you're not solving any problem, unfortunately. I know that Dishonored and Arkane kind of solve something, but it's like magic punk some way. Steampunk is very tricky, and you don't see that many projects about that. So I would avoid steampunk. But yeah, Arkane is going to be the meta because you're going to have fan art, but it's going to be the League of Legends style. But yeah, I would avoid that personally. Or else bring it in a different direction. Let's say you do The Witcher in the style of Arcane, why not? Why not? How to nail a cool layout for a good project presentation? Go watch the Artnest Academy Awards. I'm showing that. Would you always recommend doing factions when doing character design profile like you did in your video? Yes. I like factions just because it's very gameplay heavy overall. It doesn't have to be antagonistic. It just have to be like two different cultures still sharing the same world. It doesn't have to be good guy, bad guy, but I like different factions, yeah. May I know if there's a way to find something I'm passionate about to work on? What? May I know if there is a way to find something I'm passionate? It's hard to find the same. I would say what influenced you as a kid, what you were nerding about when you were a kid. What I like the most is exactly the same than when I was a kid nerding on stuff. I've been influenced my entire life by like Harry Potter. You look at my owls on ArtStation, it's really Harry Potter incarnate. It's about owls in a magic school, you know, with a bit of a gothic vibe. So yeah, clearly Harry Potter. I've been nerding about the Lord of the Rings, history, myths, legend. Across my whole career, I've been specialized into historical and fantasy stuff because I've been nerding about that so much. And even right now in the mentorship, I've been nerding about storytelling and how to tell a story. I wanted to be a bard when I was younger. I wanted to be those old storytellers around the fire when I was a kid. And that's what I'm teaching right now. So those are the things I'm learning about. And I would advise you to reconnect to what you were nerding about when you were a kid. It tends to be the purest form of passion, in my opinion. I'm trying to follow up with the question, guys. Is it ever a problem using English to apply to multiple EU studios? No, always apply in English. Unless you are French, applying to French studios, or German, applying to German studios. In that case, yeah. Keep it to your native language. But otherwise, yeah, apply in English. That's fine. Can you elaborate how many pages should be in a chapter? Again, go check the Artnest Academy Award. I'm showing examples of pages, but roughly per chapter 8 to 10 pages. It's not of polished work. There's maybe one polished artwork and the rest is sketches and all of that. Will you do anything similar to the video but focus on more experienced artists with some background in game dev, like leveling from junior to senior? I could, but it's honestly about reapplying the same process with a bit more maturity and a bit more experience. So I'm not really sure it's going to be helpful if I do another presentation like that. It's really replicate that with more maturity, more experience. And honestly, the difference between junior and mid-level up to senior level, the only difference is the quality of your work and understanding of the production. Senior level, you might be expected to mentor younger artists. So you need to have experience in the full pipeline overall. So you need to have experience with full pipeline cycle or two before accessing managing or senior roles. If I can paint well, is line art okay enough? You need to know how to render. So it might be with photo bashing, 3D, different ways, but you need to render. Rendering is also a non-negotiable, unfortunately. It's not where you're going to stand out. It's either you have it or you don't. But line work alone is already pretty good, but not enough, unfortunately. If you want a fantastic tutorial on how to render, not sponsored, not affiliated, painting with material, the tutorial called Painting with Materials from Anthony Jones. Very good. Is it possible to leave off freelance contract work only for concept art? And could I still apply for the same job as a full-time person work? Yeah, I've been living as a full-time freelancer between 2020 and end of 2023. It was totally fine. You need to cultivate an abundance of clients. You cannot be one client away from being jobless. Even when you have clients, you need to keep applying, and especially as a freelancer. And I would say even as a salary person, I know some contracts prevent you from applying to the studios, but nothing prevents you from networking with other people and building relationships. So you are never one client away from jobless. So many people during the crisis of 2023 and this year learned the hard way that it's a very bad idea to relax, get comfortable with what you have, and stop prospecting for companies. It's not about being disloyal to companies, it's about building safety. I find it hard to blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to follow up, guys. There's so many questions. Could I still apply for the same jobs that a full-time person would? Potentially not, based on location. Freelance is generally because of location, and you might be in a different country, something like that. If it's full-time, it might be full-time freelance. In that case, that's okay. But if it's full-time in-house, you need to have a visa that allows you to move there. So again, check your visa, check your passport and all of that. Check if you have the right to work there. That's what I was explaining. If the company does not allow you to work there with your visa, check if they have freelancers. Do I need to have 3D Blender created piece for a character portfolio? Honestly, for characters, unless you're doing crazy hard surface like tech, like something like what DICE is doing or what Bungie is doing, I would say that I'm not the biggest fan of having a character base made in 3D because it looks very stiff and unusual and uncanny. I will flex drawing skills for character design. That's my take, at least. Next question. Discord link, please. Let me put it in the chat. It's going to expire. There we go. I'm going to put it in the chat. That's the Discord link. Feel free to join. Here we go. Trying to catch up. Discord link. What is the general attitude of AAA studio, AA studio, or outsourcing studio about remote work, as in only working from home? Less and less. As the market is shrinking, there's less and less remote work. So unless we are facing another pandemic type of situation, I'm not expecting it to come back. You want to look at freelancers that are technically working remotely, but it's different than remote work. Remote work to me is when you are a salary person working from a distance and never going to the studio. It's happening less and less. If it's happening, it means that the studio tremendously trusts you, and you have probably established a relationship of trust before with them. If you don't see we have the level for the mentorship and you put us back in the first step, we have to pay again mentorship. No, it's a simple product that's going to be at a micro fraction of the price of the mentorship. It's giving you the preparatory module for the mentorship, the one I give to anyone who joined the mentorship before we start. You're going to access it. It's going to tell you everything you need to level up and to potentially and to level up your design, to level up your technique, and to reapply properly. You reapply, and I see that you have leveled up properly. Now you have the level. You are going to pay the price of the mentorship minus what you paid for the preparatory module. Hope it makes sense. I'm not giving it for the sake of making money. I don't give a shit about that. It's mainly to get people engaged, because when it's free, people do not give a shit about that. I have the data with the free course I have, less than 1% of people finish it. And less than 50% just open it. So when it's free, you don't pay attention. When you pay attention. It's a way to keep people engaged. But I do not really care about that money. It's not something that is going to change my life. And again, it's not something I want to sell. Either it's only to people who apply to the mentorship. At least I don't want to sell it publicly. It's going to be explained, don't worry. Company asking character and environment pieces. Yeah, in that case, those are generalists. I talked about that. And yeah, I agree with you, Edward. Everything is negotiable if you're good enough, but a junior often requires guidance that needs to be given. Often the companies are reticent to give you that when junior. Exactly. It's all about trust and autonomy. The more autonomous you are, the more likely you are to be allowed to work remotely. How can I make the difference between an NPC and main character clear? I mean, an NPC, it's like character in the background. A main character, it's like the playable character. An NPC is going to be the shopkeeper, the tavern owner, the farmer, the background character in Baldur's Gate, something like that. Any character that is just a function and a tool. It's not something that is contributing actively to the story overall. Our animation industry internship, animation industry are just for the student, and I'm from Egypt. I have to move from a country to get hired. I'm not doing animation internship for the mentorship. I'm rarely dealing with people from the animation. I'm mainly doing concept art, a bit of viz dev, concept art, illustration, viz dev, but that's it. To the animation, I'm not taking people like that in the mentorship, unfortunately. And I'm not providing internship yet to the mentees. It's currently in negotiation with certain studios, potentially. But we are not a school. I'm doing a mentorship, and generally for internships, you need to have a school. I'm also currently negotiating to have a school stamp eventually. But I do not want to be an art school. I want to keep it mentorship and anti-art school mindset. If you're from Egypt, yeah, unless you find some studios in Egypt, you will probably have to move or else work as a freelancer. Given the tense situation in Egypt on a geopolitical level, I don't know how the banking system is and how easy it is to forward money from, let's say, Europe or the US to Egypt. This might also be a factor to take into consideration. And if it's a deal breaker to send money from Europe to Egypt, if it's hard, in that case, yeah, you might have to move. Or find an alternate way to get money, like a Wise account, a Revolut account, something like that, based on what is available. There are always solutions. Do not worry about that. Must one follow exactly the same art style and world building of the studio's project, or can still have some creative freedom? I would say follow 80% of that, bring 20% of creative freedom. You do not want to do a carbon copy of what they do. You want to do something that is compatible with what they do. That's the difference. But you still want to bring fresh and prospective ideas to the table. Since most of your advice is based off concept art, how relevant will the same advice be to apply for an illustrator? Exactly the same. Exactly the same. You're going to analyze Illustrator working on tabletop RPGs and things like that. You can find them by searching the most successful project on Kickstarter, for example. You check who ran the Kickstarter. It's a studio. Check the website of the studio. Check the artist. Use the same research as I showed, like name of the project or name of the studio, ArtStation. You will find the artist, check their work, analyze that, analyze the code, do exactly the same process. I have some illustrators in the mentorship, and that's exactly what they do, and they are absolutely killing it. It will be the same for 3D, by the way, or animation, or any artistic job, honestly. Are there any free scholarship I can apply to get professional education in the animation industry? I don't know about the animation industry. I'm sorry. Can you show your portfolio you apply for your first job? Oh my God, you want to see that piece of shit? Yep. Let me see if I still have it. I need to find an email. It's going to be strange because it's going to be a very different context. Let me find it. Where is it? I think that's that one. There we go. Portfolio. It's going to be a very different context than now. And again, it's going to sound surprising. Let me open it up. It's going to sound extremely paradoxical with what I just said regarding keyframe and all of that. But bear in mind that at the time it was in 2016. Here we go. Bear in mind that at the time it was in 2016 and 3D photo bashing and photorealistic things were extremely hard to do. So this was, according to law of supply and demand, the hard stuff to do and the super rare stuff to do. Everyone was drawing and having crappy rendering at the time, and doing 3D photo bashing and photorealistic stuff was super tough. And this is what the market needed at the time before it went saturated. And that's what I gave. A lot of rendering because they wanted cinematic stuff. There was a bit of sketches, and today a portfolio like this will not work at all. But at the time, this was extremely valuable because nobody knew how to make that, especially to that level. And it was exactly the same. I really analyzed what Raphael Lacoste was doing on Assassin's Creed and what the folks on The Division were doing. And that's exactly what I did. So again, the principle is the same. It's just that the content of the portfolio was very different. And I will absolutely not advise to do that today. But again, this was 2016 and the meta was different. I hope it answers your question regarding the portfolio. And again, 2016, pretty old. Back to the questions. And this was junior work, by the way. And I did an art test that was heavily focused about design. So I got tested on my designs, actually. For every character should have a psychic pet? No, not just one or two pets. That's enough. That's enough in a portfolio. You put roughly 50 hours into portfolio pieces. And guess what, my students? In one chapter, they are putting 200 hours. Focus on getting stuff done well before focusing on speed. If anyone is telling you that a full concept art pipeline is done in 3 days, they are bullshitting you. Maybe the final render once the full design is done, maybe in 2-3 days. Or maybe for an illustration, sure. But the design and all of that, everything I shared in the Artnest Academy Awards, it takes a fuck ton of time, and in a studio it's going to take weeks to make. Will illustration work get replaced by AI? Again, I do not have a crystal ball. I think that fancy picture will be with no storytelling and no emotional impact is already replaced by AI. You want to future-proof yourself as a storyteller, as a lapsus, as an illustrator, become a fantastic storyteller. Spark emotions. Talk about stories, talk about emotions in your work, because AI is super bad at that. That's the only way to keep competing against AI, in my opinion, because AI is very good at the technical part. So if your only currency is technique, and you don't have storytelling, you don't have feelings, you don't have the human element, again, I wish I'm wrong, but I think people will be at risk. Again, go watch Feng Zhu's video. What AI can and cannot do is going to answer your question better than me. But I think that by doing proper work for concept art or illustration, which is storytelling, problem solving, and all of that, you're also future-proofing yourself against AI. And if one day AI is able to have that, we're going to have way bigger problems in the world than AI stealing our job as a picture maker. Well, again, go watch Feng Zhu's video. And again, do not shout me. I'm just the messenger, okay? I do not want AI to replace anyone. And I do not like AI. Since you've gotten your first job in the industry, have the standards changed? Yeah, the bar is constantly going up. And I think by showing my portfolio, I proved that. The technical bar is going constantly up again and again. And because it's more and more easy. So that's why it's a given. At the time, it was what got me hired. And it got me away with bad design skills, actually. I had bad design skills in that portfolio that I shared. I'm not shy about that. That's why I got art tested. I got art tested on my design skills because there was none in that portfolio. I was showing that rare thing that was photorealistic technique. Because it was as rare, they gave me a shot. And today, technique is a given. Any dum-dum with a quick sale account, 3 weeks on training on Blender, an HDRI, and a graphics card can make a fancy render. That's not an achievement anymore. Glad you liked it, Mao. In case where you can't find enough of the concept art from a game, is there any other way to find the art? Find similar projects. And go watch Fengzu. Go watch Fengzu. Fengzu has been explaining that so much. Go watch Fengzu video 111. The Spirit of Entertainment Design. I mean, Fengzu has been explaining the jobs for 15 years. It's just that because it's not the most entertaining thing to watch, people want to follow the influencers, artists. Like, hey, I'm on a big project. I made that tutorial to work on to show you what I did on Star Wars. And people are like, hey, if he did that working on Star Wars, if I do the same, I can also work on Star Wars, which is obviously not how it will work. And that's how people fell for the keyframe epidemic. Or maybe not the keyframe, the flashy picture epidemic. Again, I have nothing against keyframe. I just want work to be put in a package that is production ready. And you're free to do as many keyframes as you want for fun. That's fine. But if you want to get a job, do not complain if you only have fancy pictures and you do not get hired, because that's not what company wants. Again, I know I sound like a dick when I'm saying that. There's no malicious intent in what I'm saying. I do not say that to be mean. I say that to remain honest about people. The animation studio will be in charge of my moving location. Again, studio, if they want you enough, they will get you to move. But you need to be very good. Again, it's back to what Edward was saying. It's your negotiating power. And yeah, you need to be good. So they can make compromise about it. Edward, we need to have a talk. I want to make a podcast with you. Yeah, a concept can take months of work if you're working on a hero subject. What is fast is the rendering at the end, and that's what people focus on. Every character should add a pet psychic. It's necessary in the portfolio. No, I say that. I said 1 or 2 psychic across your entire portfolio, that's enough. Otherwise, it's formulaic. What is the idea to find a job after getting your first job on a bigger studio? Let me try to rethink about that. It was extremely easy. I sent a few CVs, but mostly when you join the big industry, the industry starts working for you because you get referral. You get into that in the database of the industry, and other people know about you. And to be honest, I did not send that many CVs after. I sent a few successfully for some of them, unsuccessfully for others, of course, just like anyone else. But most of my jobs, especially starting since 2020, it was people reaching out to me. Again, if you look at MileStation is absolute dog shit. It's not concept art, it's just fancy illustration. I'm never sharing what I do professionally. So it's just for referral and reputation. You don't need to have an online presence on ArtStation and social media to be successful. You need to have a network. You need to network a lot, and I've been networking a lot. So yeah, it was very easy. Also, you have a record of having successfully worked on big projects. So what else can studio want? They just want your style to match it, and they know you can do the job. My trajectory can I evolve as being the specialist around fantasy and historical stuff, and very moody painting. Like all the gothic stuff, very Dark Souls like that. That's what I've been requested to do, especially as an illustrator, more than concept art. And photorealistic stuff overall. And it is to or not to be mentally overwhelmed during the portfolio prep journey, one step at a time. One step at a time. And just follow every content, every chapter I mentioned one by one. You do one and you do not start another one until that one is done. That's how I will do it. One thing at a time. Do not multitask. Starting salary for junior at expatriate in debt on companies depends on where you start. Really depends on when you start, so I cannot give you the precise number. So it's going to depend, and it's also depend on your skill. I have some people who started as junior at 400 a day. I know some junior who started at 100 a day in the same geographical region. So no amount of average you found on Glassdoor online is going to entitle you to anything. Your salary is always negotiated case by what you bring to the table and how well you can negotiate and how much value you bring to the table. I roughly started at 30K a year as a salary in France. That's when I started. More or less. How comes there are no jobs, but there are still hundreds of games, if not thousands, being released? Because most of the studios are hiring internally. They are like, hey, do you know someone who can do that? And they are also having talent acquisition people reaching out to people. Because again, you do a job offer, you get hundreds of shit in your inbox. And you waste a ton of time. So studios reaching to people is far more efficient. Yeah, we're going to talk about that, Edward, for sure. Found that a lot of the open positions are looking for 3D artists and marketing graduate, but very little for concept art or illustrate work. Is the demand low? Always has been. Like when I was at Ubisoft, it was a small studio in Annecy. There was like, let's say around 200 people. We are 5 concept artists. And there might be like 40 3D artists. You don't need that many concept artists unless you unless you are going in a concept art outsourcing studio like Mood or something like that. In that case, yeah, sure, there's a lot of demand. Same with Envar. They have so many people now. But in production studio, there are not that many concept artists. How you feel when you get your first job? It's emotional. Yeah, it's a huge relief. It's a massive relief. Because that's something I'm talking about a lot, especially with the mentees. Like when you are an artist, when you want your first job, you are getting so much pressure from your peers, your parents. Everyone is worried about you and you feel very guilty. You're going against the grain. You want to prove yourself. You want your parents to still to stop worrying about you, even when they are supportive. You want recognition. You sacrificed everything when you grinded so hard. You sacrifice everything, your health, social life, maybe your friends, girlfriend, whatever. Other hobbies, a lot of sleep. The only way to get like a consecration and to get validated and to get that guilt and stress to vanish is to get that job. So yeah, it's a massive relief. Especially because I was feeling like a jobless loser who got kicked out of school. So yeah, that's a massive relief, of course. There you go, Edward. We are 7 concept artists at Crytek, which is quite big for 450 plus people in the studio. That's quite a lot. What's a reasonable amount of time to spend crafting on a portfolio? I say that, Patriel, especially you, Patriel, you have the thing. You know that one chapter should be roughly 150 to 200 hours. So 2 to 3 chapters will lead you to 500 to 600 hours worth of work. That's a reasonable amount of time. I describe everything in the preparatory module that you have. Any final question, folks? I will have to go. Again, folks, quick shout out. If you want to join the mentorship, you have the link right there. Scan the QR code, book a call. Let's have a talk. Let's review your work. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that session. Feel free to, again, like, comment, you know, the YouTube bullshit. That video is going to stay up only for a few days. I don't know how many, probably the weekend, maybe a bit more. But after that, I'm going to remove it. So feel free to take notes. Feel free to share it to as many people you think might benefit from it. And yeah, see you soon. See you on Discord. See you soon, folks. Take care. Bye.